folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America, from then and on, will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
We ought to send them all back to Africa. We ought to send them all back to Africa. We ought to send them all back to Africa where they belong. We ought to send them all back to Africa. We ought to send them all back to Africa. They ought to get the hell out of America and leave the white man alone. They don't like this, they don't like that. They're never satisfied, and that's the fact. The more we give, the more they take. The more we fix, the more they break. The country's in an awful mess, with a whole lot of civil unrest. I got one thing to suggest. They ought to leave and get gone.
Rest in piss, dumb fucking nigger.
The real incident I want to talk about is what happened in Frisco, Texas about a month ago, which was the murder of Austin Metcalf by Carmelo Anthony. And why has Donald Trump not said a single word about this issue? How long are we going to let white people be murdered in the streets before we do something? I am tired of this.
Well, no, I mean, see, I see some of you guys are laughing, but the reality is if it was the other way around, you guys would be burning down the city, if we're going to be honest here, right? Got the black one in the back screaming and laughing at him.
And I don't want to make this look like
hold on. Let me, because this is the thing, because a couple of the people here are laughing at your rage, but I find it interesting that if it was the other way around, they can burn down a city like Minneapolis over George Fentanyl, but if he goes ahead and expresses some rage, you guys laugh at him, which is interesting to me because they can't be honest about this, where there is seriously a problem in America where a small percentage of people are committing a majority of the violent crime. What? Black men account for maybe 8% of the population, but they're committing something like 50 to 60% of the violent crime, and they can't talk about this, right? So I do think that there's a problem here where we need to address black culture. We need to address the degeneracy. We got to address the violent gang and rap culture, and it's an issue. And the thing is that, you know, guys like him can't speak up about it. He speaks up about it, and then we got black girls in the back laughing at him. But, you know, when they kill a black man, y'all are rioting all over the place and burning cities down, and nobody says anything to you guys. So I think he has a right to be pissed off. I mean, I was pissed off when I saw it.
I mean, I just have kind of a follow-up to that. I just have a follow-up to that. You know, you talking about this is kind of like a socioeconomic thing, a culture thing. Well, if that's true, why have the crime rates kind of stayed the same since the 60s, since the civil rights movement even? You know, before rap music, speaking on that rap music, why doesn't rap music make white people go just murder people in the streets? Is this a culture thing, or is this just simply a race issue?
There's a couple things. Now, this is going to be very controversial, but it's an IQ thing too. Yeah. It's an IQ thing, and this is what's banned a lot of the times that I got to we're on YouTube, so I'll kind of say this in code word, but it's a multitude of different things. It's culture, it's IQ, it's, heritage, all these things play a role. But yeah, there's a bunch of different, issues, right? It's a two-tier justice system. There's so many different things that play into it. But I have a saying, around the blacks never relax. So, take from that what you will.
Living around white people is not a human right. You don't get to live with us all the time, all right? This is our country that we built. Yeah, white immigrants built this country, thank you. Read the Naturalization Act of 1790.
No, it's the truth. This country was founded by white Protestant
men. And yes,
men.
I understand that black people have been a part of this country since the beginning. because of slavery. And I'm not
I think the
endorsing
girls
slavery.
over there don't like what you're saying.
And I know that, yeah. Yeah. And the logical consequence of slavery is that, you have these people displaced in this country. And, at the time, maybe the better choice should have been to just send them back to Africa. Because clearly they can't integrate in a proper society and live with us without just murdering each other in the streets. So it really kind of makes you think, well, now, it's baked in now. What can we do about it? And, some people like, I watch Nick, like Jason Whitlock, he had that thing with Jason Whitlock where Jason Whitlock says, oh, well, if they're just Christian, man, then, things would be different. But then you look at countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo. That country's 95% Catholic, roughly. And they have one of the highest murder rates in the world. And, their country's it's a failed state. And it just really makes you think, it's not a culture issue, it's not socioeconomics, it's not religion, then, what is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, IQ does play a huge role in it. And that's the thing that people don't like to discuss. But, yeah, no, that's true, man. I mean, the truth hurts sometimes for people. But yeah, they've done meta-analysis on this with IQ and race, and the data doesn't lie, In general, black people tend to have lower IQs, so it is what it is.
I think the people whose ancestors fought in the Civil War have a hell of a lot more claim over America than the people who say they don't belong.
One of the things that struck me is J.D. Vance can use his $5 words, and he can try to give things a veneer of respectability. These are the same racist, xenophobic policies that we have seen from this administration since day one. And someone at TPM wrote this. I thought it was exactly right. What he is talking about is an America where heritage counts as much as values. And that's the question that you have to ask yourself. Do we want to redefine American identity to be about heritage? And would J.D. Vance like to know about all of the Mexican Americans who fought during the U.S. Civil War?
Oh, yes. I mean, it is, let's play a little bit more of this, because I think people really need to understand that this is exactly who J.D. Vance is and why it is so and the opposite of American.
Identifying America just with agreeing with the principles, let's say, of the Declaration of Independence, that's a definition that is way over-inclusive and under-inclusive at the same time. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, it would include hundreds of millions, maybe billions of foreign citizens who agree with the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Must we admit all of them tomorrow?
I just want to note that the words in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, it wasn't just a slogan. That is a political thesis. The idea that in America, what makes you American is not your heritage, but your equality and your values. And the Founding Fathers rejected this idea of what some experts now are calling it. What he's talking about is blood and soil, like nationalism. Yeah. And the Founding Fathers rejected it. You can look at the Federalist Papers #1, the Federalist Papers #10. They were very, very clear that America is not going to be a country based on heritage. Because to be very clear, Alicia, and Michael are just as American as J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance's recent heritage citizenship speech wasn't just another round of nationalist rhetoric. It's a clear articulation of a strategy. And he's laying the groundwork to redefine what it means to be an American by returning us to a constitutional foundation that led to civil war once before. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer, public historian and a scholar of American history. The speech was delivered to the Claremont Institute, a far-right think tank that, along with the Heritage Foundation, is responsible for much of the ideological scaffolding of this regime, especially when it comes to immigration, which is all they really want to talk about. Citizenship, belonging. Their mission is to strip Americanness down to bloodline, down to ancestry, not shared principle. You won't surprise you that principle is something they are not interested in. And Vance is their perfect mouthpiece, not a thinker, great mouthpiece. In this vision, being born here ain't enough. Agreeing with American ideals, to the extent they can be articulated, ain't enough. No more melting pot. Turn off Schoolhouse Rock. It's all too inclusive. That's post-Civil War thinking, and it threatens the racial and cultural homogeneity they want to impose, or reimpose. Instead, Vance, he argues that being American should be based on heritage. If your ancestor fought in the American Revolution or the Civil War, he doesn't say which side, and we all know he doesn't care, then you have a stronger claim to being American than someone born here today, including, say, I don't know, his wife. These are not deeply reflective people, but they are disciplined in their messaging. And what they're building is a calculated return to the First Republic, which we've talked about before, which we'll talk about again. The one created by the Patriot Republicans, codified in the Constitution of 1787, and sustained until it was destroyed in 1865 by the only thing that could stop it: war, a body count. Not collapse, not compromise, not debate, not protest, not reform. It had to be ended by United States soldiers and sailors, white and black, by blood. Even the earliest historians of the American Revolution, writing during the Constitution's framing to make sure that it was an informed approach, made that explicit. David Ramsey and his contemporaries described the American Revolution and citizenship in the republic it produced as the exclusive domain of white men. Black people explicitly could not ever be citizens. In the 1790 Naturalization Act, the first federal Congress got right to this, making it law. Only free white persons could become citizens through naturalization. And Chief Justice Roger Taney, in the Dred Scott decision in 1857, about 65 years later, gave the first republic its most honest expression. Black people, he wrote, had no rights the white man was bound to respect according to the founders. Not because they were enslaved, but because they were black. He wrote for a 6-3 majority. All of the justices wrote their own opinions, but Taney represented the answer to the particular questions that were before them, the number one being, were black people citizens? Taney represented why their answer was no. And why? Because they were descended from different ancestors than white Americans. They lacked a history of freedom. They were by birth and blood outside of what Taney called the political family of the United States. Sound familiar? That's what this regime wants back. And it's making real progress, folks, not just in think tank manifestos, not just in seminar rooms, but in Supreme Court decisions and legislative threats. This is the rollback of birthright citizenship. This is the slow erasure of the 14th Amendment. And the Civil War should have ended this debate. That body count should have stood. The 14th Amendment guaranteed that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. It was designed to obliterate the language of the Dred Scott decision. It made possible the multiracial democracy we've only ever half built. But Vance says it went too far. He wants to shrink the circle again. And if you look at the demographics of who fought in the American Revolution and the Civil War, it's no mystery what that means. Heritage citizenship is just racial citizenship rebranded. It's another way to say, if white men are your ancestors, then you're okay. Yeah, there were black patriots, and nearly 200,000 black soldiers fought for the United States in the Civil War. But they don't count in Vance's framework, and the black loyalists erased. But Confederate ancestors, by the way, certainly included. Again, these people are not reflective. Because it's not about service. It's not about being a traitor. It's about blood. It's about building a legal framework that redefines Americanness through whiteness and through nostalgia for a time when it was official policy backed up by the arm of the state. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a declared agenda. It's there. Look it up. Project 2025 lays it out in plain language, and all of these executive orders back it up. End birthright citizenship, dismantle civil rights protections, expand mass deportations, eliminate anti-white DEI programs. And the 1776 Commission, that's their counter to honest history. It whitewashes slavery, diminishes civil rights struggles, and sanitizes the founders to justify building the First Republic all over again. But what's the real problem for them? Well, it's the expansion of rights. From Reconstruction to the Voting Rights Act to Roe and Title IX, it unravels their white male power fantasy. It pushes women out of the kitchen and men into their parents' basements. And now they want the old structure back. That's what heritage citizenship means to them. It's not rhetoric, it's not nostalgia, and it's not just Trump. It's the past, but the past has a blueprint.
Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to my fellow laborers, and shalom to the saints. And this is going to be a message to you so-called foundational black Americans. Because while you're sitting on the sidelines, as the Hispanics are rounded up, as the Haitians are getting ready to be detained and deported, you somehow think that you are not going to be affected by all of what is going on. And we are not saying that you should be protesting and rioting and all things like that, because that's not going to do anything. But what you need to be aware of is the plan of your enemy. 2 Corinthians 2:11, and we always get this, says that we should not be ignorant of Satan's devices, lest he gain an advantage over us. Okay? But when you look at things collectively and see what this government is doing, like for instance, they want to make abortion illegal. They want to get rid of birth control. They want to make it so that alimony and all these types of things, that the woman has power over the man through the legal system. They want to get rid of all of those things because they realize that those things are detrimental to their survival. And they've always known this, but now it's beginning to affect their families. Those laws were set up for our women. Those backwards laws were not set up for the so-called white people. They were set up for our people. You see, they want our women to abort their babies. They want our women to be degenerate and to be head of household so that they could raise a generation of degenerate children, both men and women, just like we see today. Mission accomplished. You see, but now they realize that their birth rates are declining and they are suffering as a result of the laws and the policies that they put into place to damage our people. So what they want to do now, they want to get rid of our people and make the laws so that the woman has to be submissive to her man so that the family can be successful. Because when you empower the woman, you destroy the family. Those are facts. And the so-called white man is having no more of it. Okay? The so-called white birth rate is going down, down, down. And these Hispanics and Negroes are just breeding. And so now they are taking actions to preserve their race. So they are going to pull out all the stops. So we are warning you what is happening, because your church pastor, Pastor Porkchop, is not warning you. All right? A great culling is coming for you all, man. Let the record reflect the fact that we warned you. When I say we, I'm speaking about the Hebrew Israelites, the ones who are dealing with the truth. We warned you, and we are warning you about what is to come, pursuant to the Holy Scriptures. Jeremiah 30:7 speaks about a time of Jacob's trouble. Jacob is the forefather of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, Genesis 32:28. And that's where we get the 12 tribes from, which are comprised of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay? Also including the Haitians and the West Indians, so on and so forth. Now, let me ask you this. With all the hoopla that's going on with the illegal immigrants being detained and deported and all this other stuff, right? Where are the Chinese illegal immigrants? Huh? Where are the Iranian illegal immigrants? Where are even the African illegal immigrants? Because remember, it's not only Hispanics and Haitians that are illegal immigrants. Good question, huh? Refer to the 12 tribes chart for more details, okay? Because these countries like Russia and China, Iran and Lebanon and all these different places are actively engaged in war against America. So much so that the US government is even warning of sleeper cells amongst them. But their immigrants are going about their daily business in Atlanta and New York and Orlando and Miami and Los Angeles and wherever else they are in the States, right? How come they are not being detained and rounded up, huh? Zechariah 13 and 8 on down speaks about 2/3 of the nation of Israel being put to death in these latter days. Okay? Like we always bring out. Maybe it's time you FBAs and you other unrepentant Negroes, Latinos, and Hispanics figure out who you truly are. Only then will you understand why it is you about to catch some serious hell, man. Unlike these other nations, okay? Might just be time to start taking these messages that we are bringing out through the Holy Spirit, out of the Bible, through the power of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, seriously, okay? The title of this lesson is Send Them All Back to Africa, Project 2025. Send them all back to Africa, Project 2025. And most of us know that we don't have no homeland back in Africa to go to. Even Mr. Go Black to Africa, your man, not your boy, had to finally admit that that whole idea of going back to Africa is not a solution for our people. Because those Africans, they don't want us. They know that we are not what you call African. However, Donald Trump has made some accommodations for you FBAs over in South Sudan. The Sudanese have apparently agreed to house you for free and provide accommodations for you over there with refreshments in prison. Okay? A war-torn country that doesn't even have enough food to feed its own citizens or its own prisoners for that matter. Right? Doesn't even have enough space. I think the prison that they're using was built to accommodate something like 500 people, and they got over 2,000 people in the prison already, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where they want to send you. And like you saw in the intro, Fit from Fresh and Fit, I think his name is Myron something, which I think he's Sudanese, I'm not sure. But he's putting it out there that you Negroes are not accepted by him. Okay? So there you go. Let's just get this precept in Isaiah, the 13th chapter. I'm going to start from the 13th verse. It says, Therefore, I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of Yahawah of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. And they shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. So what we're about to see is that when SHTF, when the rubber hits the road, as they say, people are going to revert back to their tribalistic instincts. And they're going to look at everybody else with suspicion. When resources start to get more scarce and things start to get more hard, people are going to revert to looking at their own people for solace. But the thing about most of our people, we don't have a people. We are enemies of our own selves. But that's another lesson. But as we see the decline of the American empire and her waning status and power on a worldwide front, and most importantly, the declining birth rate of so-called white folk, we're going to see some drastic changes on how they behave. And by putting these policies and procedures and laws into place is how they're going to do this. Because they can see what's happening in South Korea right now, where they are pretty much at a deficit when it comes to population. And unless something drastic happens, they are not going to survive as a people. And all of that is due to the Western model of civilization that they adopted. So this is not an if situation, it's a when situation. So the so-called white folk have to change drastically how they operate, or else they will cease to exist. I mean, you have the women who don't want to have a family. They want to just be career women and just sleep around, right? And then you have a growing population of so-called white women that want so-called black men, right? And then you have abortion as an option, and you have birth control as an option. And you have all of these things that can empower a woman to be independent from a man and not have to rely on him for anything, by leveraging all the men, like your police, your fire department, your home builders, your hospital services, right? All of these different things that she can just get by picking up a phone. So the need for a man is greatly diminished. So she's just going to have fun, because that's what girls want to do. They just want to have fun. And having fun is not raising a family. You see, so they have to do something about it. And that's what this is all about. Which is why these Edomites are starting to begin to pull back all of the entitlements that they were giving out to our people, particularly our women, with the Section 8 and the SNAP and the food stamps and all of these other benefits that caused our women to think that they don't need us. But they're going to come to find out, and they're already starting to come to find out. And us men have also come to find out that, oh, you only were dealing with us because you needed resources. But once you got resources, without us, you didn't need us anymore because you found a new host, like a parasite, huh? But that's also another lesson. So the scarcity of resources, the declining dollar, the reduction in status and power that America has is causing these people to start to show their true colors, okay? Sirach 12:8 says a friend cannot be known in prosperity, and an enemy cannot be hidden in adversity. You see that? So this is why we see these changes in what's going on in the American government right now. Okay? So for them now to be revisiting the 14th Amendment and revising what it means to be a citizen based on heritage rather than any kind of shared beliefs, right? Should be a wake-up call to you all, man. It truly boggles the mind to see how you unrepentant Negroes have so much faith in America. You have so much faith and trust in the so-called white man's kingdom. You have more faith in the so-called white man's kingdom than the so-called white man has himself. Because while he is steady building bunkers, moving his assets and his loved ones to Kauai or New Zealand, you have unrepentant Negroes in Harlem talking about, oh, the birthright citizenship came about because of us, and it's not for the Hispanics, it's only for us, and blah, blah, blah. You dummy. You don't have no understanding about what's going on, man. They're getting ready to come after all of us. And let me make it emphatically clear. All right? And mark it on your calendar. July 12th, 2025. This heritage that they're speaking about going back to in order to determine who is an American is referring to your bloodline. All right? And they know exactly who is who. Because while y'all were taking those juices in 2021, 2022, and letting them swab up inside of your nostrils, they now know genetically who you are. All right? And even if you did not subject yourself to the inoculations or the swabs, your family members did. So they still know who you are. You think they mapped the human genome for nothing? It was for precisely that reason, to identify who are the children of Israel, is why they even mapped out the genome to begin with. And now that they have that information, right, stored in a database, they know exactly who you are, and they want to be able to eradicate every single one of us, man, in an attempt to get their birthright back. That's what you guys are missing, man. You check it out? Let's look up that word heritage. It says heritage is property that is or may be inherited. Okay? So this is referring to the land of America being able to be passed on from one generation to the next. Heritage can also refer to a person's ethnic background or a bloodline. Okay, so these people want to make America so-called white again. All right? And that excludes you so-called foundational black Americans. You're the biggest target, man. Even more so than the Hispanics. How come you can't see that? Let me tell you something. I live in Central America, or I should say I reside in Central America, right? And I see the relations between the Mennonites, which are mainly Russian and German, and the Hispanics versus the so-called Creoles, or blacks, as it were. And the Mennonites much rather hire and work with the Hispanics than the so-called Negroes or the so-called Creoles, the so-called blacks. They much rather give them opportunities for employment, and they will not tolerate a bunch of Negroes living close to them, but they will allow the Hispanics to do so. So how come you black Americans don't understand that you are the biggest target, man? Are you lost? I want to read you this poem now, attributed to Martin Niemöller, that reflects the dangers of inaction and silence in the face of injustice. It says, "First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." So, in other words, first they came for the illegal immigrants, but I did not speak out because I'm not an illegal immigrant. Then they came for the Haitians, but I am not a Haitian, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the West Indians, but I'm not a West Indian, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Native Americans, but I didn't say anything because I'm not a Native American. I'm a foundational black American, and the 14th Amendment is for me, and I'm special, and my ancestors built this country. But then they came for the black Americans, and nobody spoke out or did anything because, well, there was nobody left to speak out or do anything about it. You see, you foundational black Americans, right, have seemingly forgotten the fact that every treaty that Esau Edom has made, he has broken it. He made almost 400 treaties with the so-called Native Americans. And he broke every single last one. And you're clinging on to this 14th Amendment, which in and of itself is convoluted and shaky at best. But you're clinging on to it, right? Thinking that that's your salvation, man. I'm here to tell you through the spirit and power of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, that you're a fool if you believe that. This is Jeremiah 17:5. It says, thus saith Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Most High. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Most High, and whose hope the Most High is. Luke chapter 1 verse 68 on down defines salvation as the Israelites being saved from their enemies. Psalms chapter 83 tells you specifically who those enemies are. You cannot receive salvation from your enemies while your enemies are joined with you. Okay? Sirach 6:13 says to separate from your enemies and take heed of your friends. Matthew 24, I think it's verse 9, says that we are going to be hated of all nations. And only one nation can be hated of all nations. Because if you're hated of all nations, that means you're hated by your own nation. So that could only ever be us. Because all the other nations do not hate themselves. Only we do. Alright? Zechariah 13 from verse 8 on down says 2/3 of us are going to be cut off and put to death. A great culling is coming for our people. And you FBAs are not exempt. To the contrary, you are target number 1. So repent and seek the Most High while he may be found. Put your trust in him. Forget about all this other bullshit that you're getting involved in. Okay? So I'm not going to make this long. You know, you saw what the so-called white man feels about you in the intro of this video, and I'm just admonishing you to seek the Most High while he may be found. Isaiah 55:6. Trust in the Most High with all your heart. Proverbs 3:5. Repent and be converted. Like you talk about in Mark, I think it's 1:15. The time is at hand. These people are getting ready to come down on us with great wrath, pursuant to Revelation 12:12. Sparing none. Sparing none. That means you, FBAs. So don't say we didn't warn you. Don't say we didn't blow the trumpet. Don't say that you did not know. Alright? Because we've gone over this many times, and this is just yet another lesson to bring out this point. So with that, we're going to give our praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakakwadash, Shalom.